So as we know, there are plenty of cliches and tropes in the Dragon Ball franchise. Some have fallen off as the series has progressed, others have become endearing to the audiences, and many view them as integral to the story and fun of the franchise. However, in Dragon Ball Super, the show has taken some of these cliches to the extreme, and one such cliche I continue to find myself seeing over and over again has to be one of, if not the most annoying offense Dragon Ball Super continues to commit, and that is the cliche of being caught off guard. And at first, this may seem like a minor nitpick, because even in Dragon Ball and Z, there were some instances of characters being caught off guard, and their opponent taking advantage, the biggest being Gohan vs. Cell during their Kamehameha clash. However, Dragon Ball Super has taken this idea and blown it up to absolutely ridiculous proportions, to where not only does it happen constantly, but it doesn't even make sense when it does. And this happens in pretty much every single fight now. Someone will be winning, they make a stupid decision, something distracts them, and suddenly another character has the advantage or deals some actual damage. Even if the power difference is immense and a character doesn't even come close to the person they're inflicting damage upon. Of course, the biggest example of this, and likely where this trend started to blow up in Super, is the Resurrection F movie, where Toriyama or Toei or whoever made this decision decided that Goku's weakness is being caught off guard, and when he suddenly no longer has the durability, reflexes, or martial arts prowess he demonstrated throughout the franchise. Suddenly, even when Goku is in his ultimate godly form of Super Saiyan Blue, he can be killed by a common laser gun if he isn't paying attention. And this concept was incredibly stupid back when it happened, with everyone I knew who watched it scratching their heads at the total contradiction of what they were seeing. Goku, this incredibly powerful being who went toe-to-toe with those who could effortlessly destroy planets, solar systems, and even universes, as we saw with Beerus, can be brought down by something as nonsensical as a laser, which shouldn't even be able to make it through his aura, let alone his skin. And although the anime version of this had Goku be in his base form, because even Toei realized this was dumb, Goku's base form at this point, even at rest, shouldn't be able to be harmed by something so minor, and in doing so it dials back much of the progression we've seen him make in power throughout the franchise, even in the original Dragon Ball. It's almost like Toei looked at that anime-only scene from Dragon Ball Z where Gohan and Goku are full-powered Super Saiyans at rest and Krillin throws a rock at Goku's head only to see it actually hurts him, and decide to blow it up to 11, where Goku or anyone else can be hurt by minor things so long as they don't have their guards up. It's even gotten to the point where Goku can be harmed by bullets if he's not careful, as we saw in the episode where he and Krillin began their training, which is patently absurd. Even all the way back in the first arc of Dragon Ball, Goku is tanking bullets from a machine gun fired by Bulma while being caught off guard. And even if we want to write that off as a gag, there's still instances of Goku being hit by sniper fire in the face without seeing it coming during the Red Ribbon Army saga, as well as rocket launcher fire. And Kid Goku also tanked repeated lightning strikes without seeing them coming on multiple occasions, with lightning being hotter than the surface of the sun. But suddenly adult Goku, who we've seen be at ground zero at massive explosions, tank attacks from villains who can destroy galaxies, and who himself could probably destroy the entire universe, is not only hurt by these things, but has the potential to be killed? It's ridiculous and insulting to the audience's intelligence, especially the built-in audience who has seen the franchise, read the manga, and can clearly see how contradictory this is. There's also instances of villains being caught off guard and attacks doing nothing to them. For instance, while on Namek, when Frieza was in his second form and distracted, Vegeta blasted him at full power, only for it to do nothing to him. He was also cut into pieces, likely unconscious after Goku blasted him when planet Namek exploded, yet Frieza wasn't killed, and I doubt you can get any more caught off guard than that. There was also Semi-Perfect Cell, who was in the middle of a sentence when Android 16, who is far more powerful than Namekian Frieza, punched him right in the face. And all that accomplished was annoying Cell. And then in the anime, Perfect Cell, who wasn't even paying attention to the other fighters as he achieved achieved his perfection was attacked by Trunks and Krillin, including Krillin using his Destructo Disc, and it still did nothing to him. Yet if Dragon Ball Super is to be believed, Goku would be harmed or potentially killed by all of these things, when he's vastly more powerful than Namek, Frieza, and Super Perfect Cell combined in his base form alone. And I've seen a lot of people try to come up with in-universe answers like ki control, that through his training Goku has mastered his ability to use ki to such a degree that he can lower his guard and power to where he's able to be harmed more easily than in the previous series. But that idea is ridiculous, that somehow Goku is now able to make himself weaker than he was as a child whenever the plot demands it, so that he could be harmed by something that should have no longer been a threat even after the 21st tournament. And that's where a lot of the problems with this cliche in Super really come down to. People trying their damnedest to find answers in-universe for many of these absurdities when it all comes down to an out-of-universe perspective. People all too often ignore what happens out of universe in this fanbase and seem to forget when watching the show that's being written, animated, and crafted by a number of people. As a result, everything we see is purposely being shown to us. Dialogue is purposely written to be said, and events transpire all with specific intentions by the writers. But unfortunately, as we've seen with Dragon Ball GT and now Dragon Ball Super, the writers and creative minds at Toei are simply not as capable when it comes to writing, direction, and execution as Akira Toriyama, and don't really seem to have the same level of care. And that's saying a lot, since Toriyama would often come up with ideas on the spot or as the story progressed, but he usually had a far better handle on them than Toei themselves. This is why the continuity is such a mess in Super. Events and information are presented that are constantly contradictory, and that are just stupid when you put more than a few seconds of thought into them. And so many of the problems with this franchise could be solved with total ease. Toei could easily hire a continuity editor to make sure everything fits, everything stays consistent, and the show doesn't constantly contradict itself or throw logic completely out the window. But Toei simply doesn't seem to care about any of that. They don't care about power scaling, continuity, character motivations, or the precedent that has been built up for these characters over the course of 3 decades. And if they do care, they've demonstrated that they simply don't understand these fundamental principles, and are simply incapable of showing them in a competent way. They're willing to sacrifice logic, sound storytelling, and tone at any given moment if the plot demands, way more so than in Ball or Z. Characters will hold back for no reason when they shouldn't, or characters will be able to fight those who are far above their level. Super Saiyan and the transformations will fluctuate in multipliers based upon whatever they're doing in a scene, or multipliers will be totally disregarded just so we can have a more even fight. Like with Super Saiyan Blue and Rose, which nowhere in the show will you be able to make out a large multiplier from the previous states, even though they call it Super Saiyan or a godly transformation. Even Super Saiyan 2 is just called Super Saiyan half the time, and is so poorly represented that people almost never know for sure if that's the form they're using. And Gohan, Piccolo, or even Krillin's strength will change so drastically from episode to episode that you have zero idea how strong they are, and thus can barely have any real investment in them or their struggles. And a lot of this is really summed up in this annoying cliche of everyone constantly being caught off guard, which happens in almost every single fight in the series and is one of the laziest ways to write fights. Oftentimes it feels like people who don't understand how fights work or haven't even seen the fights from Dragon Ball or Z are writing the show, because characters who have learned from all these past encounters, have been polishing their techniques for decades, and whose skill is far above everyone who has ever lived in reality would never let their guards down so often, especially in fights with any real stakes, and yet it happens non-stop because Toei seems to have a hard-on for this obnoxious and groan-worthy trope. Just like Goku with his super reflexes, who can perceive events millions of times the speed of light, should never ever be able to be hit by a laser, bullet, or any weapon of such a level, because it would literally be standing still to him at its speed, and his senses should be so sharpened he would be able to feel it coming, yet he still manages to be hit by and hurt by it. Because Toei doesn't care about good writing or continuity, and neither do most of the fans, or this would be a much bigger issue than it seems to be. But I'm sure people will already be commenting down below telling me to stop complaining and just enjoy the show, or it's just a show meant for kids like they always do, trying to silence people who inject any real criticism because they simply don't get it. Just because a show or movie is written or produced for younger audiences or wider audiences doesn't mean in any way it should be poorly done, ignoring good writing and your own internal logic. Not all kids shows are like Teen Titans Go or SpongeBob SquarePants, where the continuity is loose and everything goes back to the way it was before in every episode. Although even adult shows follow the sitcom principle. Dragon Ball has never been this kind of show and has told longer form stories with mature themes, violence, and real implications. Sure, it has comedy, and the standards in Japan for younger audiences are different, but in no way does that mean that it should be let off the hook for violating its own rules and the people behind it not really trying, even if you have nostalgia for it and can't put any real thought into the show. If anything, if you're not actually watching this show with a critical mind, you have no room to complain when others are lobbing accurate criticism at the show, because you don't invest the sort of emotion, time, and care into this franchise as the ones criticizing it. To you, who complain about criticism, it's just mindless entertainment, or you're so blinded by your love for the show, you have to concoct elaborate headcanon to say it all makes sense and everyone else must be wrong. But this cliche still exists, it's still a problem, and you can ignore it all you want. However, when Super is long since over, and you go back to watch this show years later or rewatch it time and time again, your fondness of it may decline because of these cliches and lapses in writing, and you'll be wondering why Toei didn't just put a little bit more effort into some of these seemingly minor things, when they were so simple for the producers to fix. And that's why this video exists, because this needed to be addressed, this concept that has been taking over Super and diminishing many of the fights as a result. And maybe, just maybe, more fans will watch this show with a watchful eye, pick up on this, and voice their concerns as well, be they internationally or in Toei's primary market of Japan. Because in the end, you have the power to change this show, how it's executed, and how much effort the creators put into it. Because as a business, they want your money and your viewership. And if you tell them they won't be getting it unless they start trying harder and making these changes, well, they might just listen. Make sure to subscribe to this channel and enable notifications so you can see all of my content right away when it comes out. Yeah, and you better subscribe, enable those damn notifications.